All right, hey, welcome back. This is episode 4 of the Agents Unleashed podcast. It's a show that helps you to filter the signal from the noise in the fast-paced world of agentic AI. I'm your host, Thomas Maybreyer. I'm the digital media producer for Valerie, one of the core contributors to OLIS, who's sponsoring this show. If you haven't heard of OLIS or you haven't heard of Agents Unleashed, let me quickly take a moment to tell you about both. OLIS makes it easy for anyone to own and monetize AI agents, and that includes people like you. You can learn more about how to do that at olis.network, and Agents Unleashed isn't just a podcast, it's also the premier event series for people interested in agentic AI and AI agents. Events have been held all over the world with over 77 different speakers and panelists and 2,500 in-person attendees. To learn more about the events and watch recordings from previous talks and presentations, you can go to olis.network/agents-unleashed. And by the way, the next Agents Unleashed event has just been announced. It'll be held June 30th in Cannes, France. So save the date, and I hope to see you there. Okay, so on today's show, we're going to take a look at payments for AI agents with some major announcements from Visa, MasterCard, Coinbase, the role of open source in AI with some fresh insights from Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg, and then take a look at a fresh batch of cutting-edge models from companies like Alibaba, Microsoft, NVIDIA, and more. That's a lot to cover, so let's get started. Okay, we'll start with Mark Zuckerberg. So in a recent interview with Dwarkesh Patel, he shared his perspective on the trajectory of AGI, artificial general intelligence, and Meta's ambitious endeavors in open source. So Zuckerberg's viewpoint isn't solely focused on a distant, abstract future for AI. He's emphasized several times in these interviews that Meta's focus is on delivering tangible value to users right now. He claimed that Meta AI is being used by almost 1 billion people monthly, and that that's happening primarily through WhatsApp. The vision that he lays out for AI in these talks and interviews is one where AI is deeply integrated into our lives and our daily routines, and where our needs are anticipated and there's a very seamless user experience. Here's a quote. "Especially once you get the personalization loop going, that's going to be the next big thing that's super exciting. I'm really big on that." He also mentioned a UX that I personally could really easily imagine, and that's where we're going to be talking to these models on and off throughout our day. And it wouldn't just be limited to chat, by the way, that could also be through voice, which I personally find really compelling. This vision of highly personalized AI assistants integrated into our daily lives, though, it does raise important questions like, are we going to own these assistants or just rent them? If we're renting AI, we're essentially at the mercy of the service provider, and we have limited control over how the AI functions, how our data is used, and even whether we can continue using it at all. It's great that Meta's Llama models are open source, but as that 1 billion via WhatsApp figure highlights, the model might be open source, but the means of access may not be. The same goes for any fine-tunes they might create for you, and let's not forget that Meta has a long history of mismanaging user data and engaging in problematic patterns around data privacy and ownership. With that in mind, if these assistants do become deeply integrated into our lives, they're going to be managing our tasks, providing us information, making decisions for us, the stakes around ownership do become higher. A cornerstone of Meta's strategy is these Llama models, and these are open source models. I'm sure you've heard of them. They recently just launched Llama 4, and Zuckerberg said that he's particularly excited about its capabilities. He said he's very happy with the first set of Llama releases and that Meta is actively developing models that are optimized for different use cases, from efficient, low latency models for everyday use to these massive behemoth models with trillions of parameters. He also mentioned that building these powerful AI systems includes a lot of different inputs, and one of those is massive computational power. He acknowledges the challenges of building the necessary infrastructure, explaining, if you want to build a gigawatt cluster of compute, that just takes time. NVIDIA needs time to stabilize their new generation of systems, then you need to figure out the networking around it, then you need to build the building. You need to get the permitting, and you need to get the energy. Another moment that's been making the rounds lately, Zuckerberg has gone on record as saying that he believes that sometime in the next 12 to 18 months, the majority of code for the Llama development and refinement process will be written by AI agents. Here's a clip.
The big one that we're focused on is building an AI and a machine learning engineer to advance the Llama development itself, right? Because I mean, our bet is sort of that in the next year, probably, maybe half the development is going to be done by AI as opposed to people, and then that will just kind of increase from there.
So the amount of new models that are being announced and these impressive performance gains seem to indicate to me that these challenges are speed bumps rather than roadblocks, especially if we're going to get this development loop where AI agents are writing and iterating and testing code faster than human developers are capable of. Zuckerberg has also been touching on the open source debate in his interviews, which is a crucial theme that directly relates to the concept of AI ownership. He noted the increasing prominence of open source models, stating, the prediction that this would be the year open source generally overtakes closed source as the most used models out there, I think that's generally on track to be true. So open source offers a pathway to greater user control and ownership, and when you make the underlying code and the model accessible, this empowers users to better understand, modify, and potentially even host their own AI systems, thereby reducing reliance on these centralized providers. This is in direct contrast to the rental model or software as a service, where users have limited visibility and control, and their access can be revoked at any time. Getting this UX right is going to be a key challenge that decentralized alternatives just have to nail. The big centralized players have already been successful in normalizing these trade-offs in other domains, so to be a credible alternative, it's going to be incumbent on these decentralized players to really think about both communicating the why of what they do without sacrificing the simplicity and accessibility of a good user experience. The tension between renting and owning becomes even more apparent when we consider emerging applications like AI shopping agents. So, would you let an AI agent use your credit card? Well, if you don't have an answer off the top of your head, it's probably time to start thinking about it, because this week both Visa and MasterCard announced platforms and projects designed to hook AI agents up to the world of commerce. Visa Intelligent Commerce is a platform that enables AI agents to make purchases on your behalf. Visa's Chief Product and Strategy Officer Jack Forstall said, "Soon, people will have AI agents browse, select, purchase, and manage on their behalf." The platform purportedly allows you to set spending parameters like your preferred merchants, and Visa has already partnered with major players like Anthropic, IBM, Microsoft, and OpenAI to get the concept off the ground. So the convenience of these AI shopping agents is undeniable, but again, it's worth considering. If they're provided by a centralized platform, we may have limited control over their decision-making and logic, how they handle our financial data, or whether the provider can change the terms of service and even revoke our access. Of course, security is paramount, and Visa says that they're addressing these concerns with tokenized credentials, identity verification, and real-time fraud ID. MasterCard has also announced a similar initiative. Theirs is called the Agentic Payments Program, and so I think this signals a broader industry trend towards involving AI agents in commerce and payments. Joran Lambert, Chief Product Officer at MasterCard, said that the launch of MasterCard Agent Pay marks our initial steps in redefining commerce in the AI era. So I think these two announcements are actually incredibly good news for AI agents as a whole. Clearly, AI agents are going to need user-owned, granular access to a variety of payment options, whether that's through these big payment processors or decentralized payment rails like the OLS Mech Marketplace offers. So OLS agents can use safe, smart wallets, but through the Mech Marketplace, they also have access to Nevermind, another payment option where agents can transact with each other through what Nevermind calls universal bartering, where they're trading services directly without the use of, say, dollars as a means of exchange. Staying in the world of decentralized agent payments, on Tuesday, Coinbase announced their intent to use HTTP code 402, which stands for Payment Required, to allow for payments to be sent using this existing HTTP infrastructure. You're probably familiar with this prefix in the context of web URLs, maybe error messages like HTTP 404. What they've done is published a white paper and set up some of the necessary infrastructure to allow developers, and by extension AI agents, to use these payment rails as a means of sending and receiving value. So clearly, this idea of payments for AI agents is really taking off, and I think it's going to be very exciting to see who builds what and by which path. So next, I want to share some ideas that I found in a recent report that's a collaboration between McKinsey, the Mozilla Foundation, and the Patrick J. McGovern Foundation. It's called Open Source Technology in the Age of AI, and in this report, they surveyed over 700 technology leaders and developers, and they found that the use of open source AI is widespread. More than 50% of the respondents reported that they use open source solutions in their data, their models, or the tool areas of their tech stack. I think it's really interesting to see these numbers because, as I mentioned before, open source AI directly addresses some of these concerns about the rental model. If there's more and better open source models, then users are more empowered. They'll have better control, more transparency, and they'll also get the ability to customize these AI models to their specific needs. The report highlights several compelling advantages. I'm going to list them here. One is respondents say that they're generally satisfied with open source AI models. They cite performance and ease of use as reasons for that. They also say that it provides cost benefits. The implementation costs are lower, and so are the maintenance costs compared with proprietary tools. Developers also said that they highly value the experience that they get using open source tools. They say that it contributes to their overall job satisfaction. The report also acknowledges some challenges, concerns around cybersecurity, regulatory compliance, and intellectual property. All of these could be significant barriers to adoption. But despite these concerns, it seems to me that the outlook for open source AI is overwhelmingly positive. You've got the backing of Mark Zuckerberg, the people surveyed in this report, where, by the way, 70% of the respondents in the report said that they expected to increase their use of open source AI technologies in the coming years. So this brings us back to the cutting edge of AI model development. We've been seeing another surge of new models recently, and there's been a strong emphasis on open weight, open source, and also specialization of the type that Mark Zuckerberg has been talking about in these talks and podcasts. So here's a quick rundown of some of the recent announcements and what they're reportedly good at and for. DeepSeek has released Prover v2, which is an open-weight LLM designed for math proof verification. Alibaba released Qwen 3, which has a focus on hybrid reasoning. And Microsoft recently released a suite of new open reasoning models through 5.4. NVIDIA also recently announced Parakeet, which is an open-source automatic speech recognition model that has been achieving some very impressive results. And JetBrains has also contributed to the space with an open-source model called Melon that's especially designed for coding. Links to articles about all these new models can be found in the description or the show notes, by the way. So I think it's really exciting to see all these new models come out. I'm personally particularly interested in the gains and advances that these new reasoning models have been making. If you think about a use case like Ola's Predict, the agent economy where you have AI agents participating in prediction markets, I think it's not hard to imagine that with better models, better reasoning, you might get better predictions and generate even more high quality synthetic data, which can then be used to train the models or maybe even improve the AI coding agents that Mark Zuckerberg has been talking about. Okay, so let's wrap it up for the week. As I said in episode 3, it's clear that we're at an inflection point. The long-term pursuit of AGI as envisioned by leaders by Mark Zuckerberg is very closely intertwined with the very near-term transformation of all industries, including shopping as demonstrated by Visa, MasterCard, and Coinbase. Underpinning all of this is the growing power and influence of open-source AI and the importance of democratizing and fostering access and collaboration. You can see the evidence of that in the McKinsey report and the release of all these new open-source models. But let's not forget the crucial layer where everyday people and their needs, their autonomy come into the picture. All of this news challenges us to think critically about who controls the AI systems we use. Do we truly own them, or are we simply renting them, ceding the control of our data, our choices, and potentially our future autonomy? When are we okay with that, and when should it give us pause? Are we doing enough to support the development and exploration of alternatives? The choices that we make today about AI development and deployment are going to have profound implications for individual autonomy, the distribution of power in society more broadly, and if we're going to embrace this transformative power of AI, we need to prioritize the principles of ownership, transparency, and user control. The journey ahead is complex, to be sure, and there's challenges around security, ethics, and responsible development, but the potential upside is huge. So let's take a stand and take ownership of it. All right, that was a lot of news and some big ideas, so we'll leave it here for this week. If you have any questions for me, some suggestions for the show, please get in touch. I am at Thomas Maybrier on X. Links to all the articles, reports, and resources that we talked about today can be found in the show notes or the description box if you're watching on YouTube. And if you enjoyed today's show, please help us grow. You can do that by leaving a 5-star rating on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Give us a thumbs up on YouTube, leave a comment. And if you know someone at work, school, or in your personal life who you think would enjoy the show, please share this episode with them. All right, that's a wrap. I'll see you next time on the Agents Unleashed podcast.